Good Thursday morning. Today is interesting. In the Acts of the Apostles, you see a shift. And you see the role of culture and law and government plays. The church lives within a culture. She lives and grows within a civilization and a culture. She both creates it and is created by it. She's shaped by it. And here's the case. Paul's getting his brains knocked out, okay? He's in front of the Sadducees and Pharisees. And he gets caught in a theological dispute. And they play, it's a serious... Theology is not a game that you play in a university, in a back room, in a classroom. It's life force. It's life force of a society, especially a theocentric one where you have a theocracy where religion and faith and government are the same. Boy, you get a dispute there, Sadie bar the door, you're going to get clipped. You're playing because you're advocating civil unrest. See, and that's what happened. See, wishing to determine the truth about why Paul was being accused by the Jews, the commander freed him. Okay, the Roman commander, see, and ordered the chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin to convene. Then he brought Paul down and made him stand before him, and he get into a debate. Okay, and it gets really ugly fast. Okay, and they're going to tear him apart. Okay, whatever. Okay, so he says a dispute broke out between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the group became divided. For the Sadducees say there is no resurrection of angels or spirits, while the Pharisees acknowledge all three. And he says, it's a crapping debate, who cares? Because in that world, it makes the difference. It makes the difference between the legitimacy or illegitimacy of even the government, the governing structure. You can't separate the two, you see? So a great uproar occurred, and some scribes belonging to the Pharisee party stood up and sharply argued, we find nothing wrong with this guy. Suppose a spirit or angel has spoken to him. The dispute was so serious that the commander, afraid that Paul would be torn to pieces, ordered his troops to go down, rescue Paul from their midst, and take him into the compound. The following night, this is the point, the Lord stood before him and said, take courage. So you must also bear witness in Rome. And so what Paul's going to do, you'll see it play out this week. Remember, Paul is a Roman citizen by birth. Okay? He appeals, he wants his court. Every Roman citizen has a right to have his case presented to the emperor. He says, I want to go to the emperor. Okay. Everybody backs off. Remember, you'll see it. There's one of the guards, I forgot who it is. We'll see it. A Roman's doing a job on him, and he says, what, are you kidding me? I'm a Roman citizen. You can't touch me that way. Woo, you what? Yeah, I'm a Roman citizen, pal. Sorry. Okay? Romans had a fierce sense of law, a keen sense of law. That's why if you want to understand, I told you this the other day, if you want to understand Western culture and civilization, you can't discount the role of Rome. Rome gave the world law, universal law. It bound everyone, whatever your religion was, whatever your ethnicity was, whatever your tribe was, it was irrelevant under Roman law. Paul's a Jew, but he has the same right as a Roman in Rome, because he's under Roman law. That's the genius of the Romans. You can't knock the Romans. They governed the world for 700 years because they understood the principle of law. It transcends ethnicity and religion. It's universal, and it applies itself universally. And Paul takes advantage of that. And in the long run, the church will as well. She always lived within the law, not beyond the law. She is still, as it were, she is always a member of society and therefore always under the law, but also critical of the law. As any citizen can be critical of the law, but not divisive. Not divisive. It can't be a cause of civil unrest, but one can be a cause of moral reflection. I think we're calling that today in America. The debate on Roe versus Wade is a debate not just on the Constitution, but on morality. And the church has an obligation to speak to the rights of the unborn, the right against unjust aggression. See, abortion is a form of unjust aggression against the innocent, the unborn, who can't defend him or herself. See, that, by the way, is being really lost sight of right now. Really being lost sight of in the discussions. I don't know why, but it is. It isn't the case of simply women's rights. We're an absolute defender of women's rights. You have a right not to get pregnant. The question is, once you're pregnant, now you have two entities, two personal entities. whom this Constitution the state under the Constitution should protect both entities against aggression. You can't rape a woman, but you can't destroy the unborn either. This gets very, very complicated in certain instances. I just gave an example of pregnancy through rape or incest, right? These are horrible crimes against the woman. See? We are in some of the most serious debates of our times. I think constitutional debates, because right now what we're asking is, who are persons sub legem under the law? Who should the law protect? Back in '73, when Roe versus Wade came out, the argument that was raised anti-abortion was an appeal, a recollection, an appeal to the Dred Scott case, where in 1854, I believe it was 54, here in St. Louis, the court declared, that was Dred Scott case, declared Dred Scott, who was an African-American slave, runaway slave, that he was property, not a person. He was owned by the owners and therefore had to be returned. That became the moral seedbed that began to flower into the Civil War. You have to understand, Civil War begins actually in 8 years earlier in the Dred Scott case. It became a moral issue. We face something similar today. We have to ask who comes under the law. Who are persons sub legem? Who come under the Constitution as persons and hence to be protected by the government and not assaulted? That's a very important point today. How we ever come out the other end remains to be debated. And certainly women's rights have to be fiercely defended. But you also have to defend the right of the unborn. We are very trickless. Right now, the thing is only focused on women's rights. It's not the whole story. You got to have the whole story in there. It's a tremendous debate. It's a constitutional debate and a moral debate. See, not a political debate. Sadly, should never become a political debate. Should always been a constitutional and a moral debate. In order to recognize the role of government as fostering the well-being and protecting the well-being of all its citizens, not just some, all, and how and why and in what manner. But I'm afraid that debate was lost 40, 50 years ago. Now it's just political, fiercely political. I want to say this over, and I'm a fierce defender of women's rights. I mean that. I've had all my life. I've been that way, and I am, and I will be to the day I die. I mean that. But you got to see this is a complex issue here. It's not solely women's rights, although it certainly is, but it's the rights of the unborn as well. Under the law, sub legem, under the law. Who should be protected and why? And why? See? Think of Dred Scott. What happens when you deny the humanity? What happens? See? You got to be careful. Anyway, that's the issue today. And I don't know, I wasn't going to even talk about that, but you know, we are subject to the law. We are members of a society. And Paul takes advantage of the Roman law. And in so doing it, he's both protected and he becomes a means by which he fosters the gospel and eventually is himself martyrdom sub legem, under the law, by the Romans. Yeah. The worst case scenario in any society is anarchy. You never want civil war and anarchy because no one is safe. That's a Hobbesian world. No one's safe. You can't live in a civilized life in an uncivilized society. Aristotle saw that 400 BC. And I worry about the future in that regard. If we ever break down our respect and love for law and its constitutionality, Sadie Bartholomew, you are opening up a hellish world. I mean that, a hellish world. Even Paul did not reject Roman law, although he used it for the benefit of the gospel and he died under it. But still, the law transcends, as it were, the society, and it fosters and protects society. Not to be dismissed wantonly at all. Anarchy is the enemy of civilization, and it is ultimately the enemy of even religion. In Hobbes' world, no one's safe. Neither truth, nor goodness, nor life.